Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Leadership Loft with Lakeisha C. Brooks. I am your host, Lakeisha C. Brooks, and you probably see a familiar face, which is my wonderful co host. Neil, go ahead and introduce yourself again for those who may be checking you out for the first time on the show.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Lakeisha, for the invitation. I'm Cornelius Dowdell, but please call me Neil. I am a HR and talent development strategist. I'm partnering with organizations, small to large, on helping build out not only their talent development and their workforce, but also looking at process and business optimization.
Awesome. He always leaves out that he is the president of the Greater Atlanta chapter of ATD. I mean, I'm thinking, Neil, we talked about this when
We
you were
did, we
going to take
did.
over my role. You had to do it big, and he keeps forgetting about that.
And I am the president of ATD Greater Atlanta, one of the largest chapter of talent development professionals in the nation. Actually, in the world, now that I think about it.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And when I stepped down, he asked me to be his senior advisor. And I always say this every time I talk to him, he has done a fantastic job. And they just had their nominations, and the new board is coming out very soon. I don't know if we can say who they are, but if not, make sure you check it out. It's in the email. So congratulations to all of the leaders who are now going to step into that leadership role for the Atlanta chapter of the Greater Atlanta chapter of ATD. So congratulations to all of them as well.
Yes.
So great, great, great. So today we're going to talk about something that is on the rise. We hear a lot about the Great Resignation. So Neil and I are going to dive in today to talk to you all about, is your talent joining this wave? And so before we dive into that, I want to talk to everybody a little bit about, what does this mean, this Great Resignation? It's like, is that like a buzzword? Is that new? Let's talk about what that means. So I'm just going to share a little bit of information about the background behind that. So this term was coined in 2019 by someone from Texas A&M. So you can just look at the dates there. It actually started before all the pandemic happened and all of COVID happened, as far as this term being coined. And so there was some data that I pulled and I want to share with you all. So according to the U.S. Department of Labor, during the months of April, May, and June of 2021, so this year, a total of 11.5 million workers quit their jobs. And according to studies and research, it indicates that that number is going to rise immensely. And it's not over yet. So organizations will see a continuous wave of people quitting their jobs at rapid rates. So what Neil and I are going to do today is talk to you all about, what can we do about this? Is this something that's going to hit your industry? Is there going to be some sort of adverse effect for the talent that have decided to join the wave? Is this like a trend or a fad? And you're going to look back and say, holy crap, I quit my job. What's going to happen? So I want us to dive into that, Neil. And I know that there's a lot of people, probably HR professionals. I'm in a lot of HR groups, and they're seeing it, they're feeling it. They're also seeing the effects of trying to hire and recruit individuals as well, because they've lost a lot of people. So Neil, I'm going to go in and I'm going to talk about some of our top topics. So we heard that this term was coined in 2019.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
So how do you feel that the pandemic has actually affected the Great Resignation? So even though it was coined before COVID, we really didn't hear about it until 2020, the end of 2020, now going into 2021. I know for me, I think it's impacted it because people are like, look, I realize that life is too short, for one. For two, I realize I can do my job from my house, from Starbucks, anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
I also realized that I should be interviewing the company just like they're interviewing me. So I think people are starting to see more of their worth, their value, when before they couldn't. So a lot of people were furloughed. They had time to think for those 3, 4, 5 months and say, do I really?
7, 8, 9, 10 months now.
Some people still were, exactly. Some people are still in furlough.
So
I want to work here. So Neil, what are your thoughts?
I would definitely say that the pandemic helped you realize that, people talk about work-life balance.
Yes.
Let's reverse that to life-work balance. So when you think about life-work balance, the pandemic actually amplified the Great Resignation, because now you force people to really think about what was really, truly important. Why am I going to work? For my life, for my family, for the people that I'm taking care of, for myself and my own mental well-being. So what you're seeing is that now people are starting to realize that I can actually focus on myself, devote time and energy to my hobbies, the things that I love, and still make a living for myself. But then you have companies. So America's in this shift, and the world's in this shift of really automation, really trying to figure out, hey, do I really need people in seats in buildings when they can actually do the things at home and probably be more effective about it? And there's research and data that's showing that people are getting more things done at home than they were in the office. And so you're really seeing that whole shift of everyone coming back and realizing that, hey, you know, that theory of being able to work from home and work remotely, but then also still find that balance for my time, for my family, is true. Specifically, thinking about that hospitality and restaurant industry.
And we're going to talk about that later, so don't go into that. We're going to talk about that later. So we're not going to talk about that now. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting you talk about that life-work balance or work-life balance. And I know for me personally, I was furloughed. I was one of the people that was furloughed, and I was furloughed for about 4 or 5 months or so. I just remember going back to like doing what I love to do, going back to a business that I was doing in Orlando. So I didn't continue it after the fact, but it also made me think, man, I could possibly be furloughed or laid off at any given moment. So prior to COVID, I was already laid off from a company that I loved. And it wasn't because of anything on my end. It was because the organization had done some organizational shifting. And my role was redesigned and sent back to a different part of the country. And I sat in that moment and I said, oh my goodness, like at any given moment, a company can say that my job is no longer needed. I'm no longer needed. It has nothing to do with performance. It could just be a lot of things that have absolutely nothing to do with me or outside of my control. So for me, it re-engaged and energized my interest in what I was doing. So I was working on another business, but then I said, I probably need to get back to consulting. I probably need to get back to doing facilitation, things that I was doing prior to it, because I don't know what tomorrow is going to hold for me. And I know a lot of people were going to try out different industries. Like maybe they had always had an interest to do something else, maybe real estate or something that was very different than their job. So they got a chance to do it for that time. And they're just like, wait, I really like real estate. Like I really like doing this. So maybe I should take that leap, because again, there's no certainty anymore now. It's so much uncertainty now. Why don't I take this leap right now and try out real estate, for example?
I started a whole seasoning company.
Yeah, you did. I forgot you did as well. So share with everybody about your seasoning company.
Yes.
So do a shameless brag and a shameless plug.
Yes, shameless plug. Yes. So Nelia's strategy. No, wrong company. Nelia's Spices. I started 2 companies in the year of the pandemic, actually. So neliaspices.com. So I've been cooking, and I enjoy cooking. Cooking is a passion and love of mine. But what I really like doing is curating different herbs and spices and seasonings to go with my flavors, especially being that I'm from Louisiana and I moved away. I wanted to figure out how to capture that essence when I'm cooking and when I go other places too. Building out Nelia's Spices during the pandemic was one of the things that was a hobby. It was something that I translated into something to have some residual income. But what it made me, with all that time, made me realize is that, hey, that is a passion and a love. And, you know, when you're doing something that you love and you are passionate about, it's not work. And that essence there is what people are realizing during this Great Resignation, is that I don't need to be in a job with that's more stressful than it needs to be. And I feel like I'm actually putting forth more effort. So now people are exploring what that looks like. Okay, can I really make a living doing what I'm passionate about? And the answer is yes. And this shift to being in a digital world, digital environment, is allowing people to have that balance. It's allowing people to, hey, I can still have a job and have a career in a field that I'm maybe not be so interested in, but will they allow me to still be able to move, to grow and do the things that I want to be? And that is the question that a lot of organizations are being faced with right now. And that's why you're seeing a lot of people resigning. You're seeing them resign because, hey, they're looking at how can I balance out my life and my work? I still want to, I might be competent and be able to do this one thing or for this organization, but can I do what I'm passionate about as well?
So speaking of passion, can you give everybody the website for your spices and spell it out slowly for people who may want to go to your website, check out your spices or anything like that? So just very quickly spell that out for us so we can.
Yes, it'll be neliusspices.com, and it's NELIUSSPICES.com.
And there's two S's in the middle, right?
Two S's in the middle, yes.
Okay, so go ahead, check that out. We don't have any special codes or anything. Got any special codes or any type of discounts right now going on?
I can develop one specifically for this audience, and so, but I will make sure I get that to you, and you can connect with us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Nelius Spices on both platforms there. And you tag Lakeisha, and I'll make sure I provide you that code.
Awesome. Great, guys. So make sure you get that discount that he's going to send to me. Make sure to check that out because, like he said, he's one of the people that said, I want to dig into my passions and what I love to do during that time. So when we talk a lot about the individual and pandemic impacting that, we talked about technology. It's very interesting that we need to look at employers and companies and what they can do to start to re-engage people. I know that when I came back from furlough, and again, this is my personal experience, I don't feel like I was re-engaged. I felt like it was like, okay, we're back. Now here's a whole bunch of work that we need you to do. And it's like, okay, I've been gone for 4 months. I don't even remember how to log into the LMS. Let's back up and just re-engage me and make me feel like I'm valued here. Because again, I know for myself, there was really no rhyme or reason why I was selected or some other people were selected to go on furlough versus others. So re-engage them, have those conversations, ask them, how are you doing? Let's have a plan to re-engage people, to ask them, well, how are you doing? What were you doing during the furlough? Is it anything interesting? Because I think a lot of companies don't and did not consider that people may, like you said, maybe their priority switch. Maybe it's about life and versus work now. Maybe they were doing other things, whether they were furloughed or not. How did it change their perspective? And did you take time to talk to them to get to know your talent again during that time? Because a lot of people are also going through personal issues during COVID as well. What are some of your tips, Neil?
So I think there was a violation of trust. So you in a way, being furloughed, laid off, let go. And so kind of violated that trust that in that organization. So you are dealing with a trust and loyalty issue. And I tell the companies are not loyal as they used to be. And now you're dealing with the impact of what that means is that you violated the company, the organization, violated the trust. And now you're trying to regain and attract talent, new talent. And now you have to build that trust. That's where it comes in, that whole, what is your employer value proposition? But then what are you providing these employees to build and make them feel secure? Goes back to having that security. Am I secure? You violated the security aspect. So now people have to go and find a way to be self-sufficient and secure in their own right. And then add in an employer to back up that, because now they can't trust you. I just wanted to point that out like that, because that literally it's a trust factor. Now, what organizations can do to help build that trust is during that employee onboarding, that employee experience process, is secure them in the fact that these roles are here, but then also know that the pandemic is still going on, things are being shifted, but be transparent about it up front. When you if you actually come at with them, as I call it, sideways, and actually hit them with a surprise, and so you go back and violate that trust factor again. So be transparent up front about the role. If it's a full-time role, part-time role, is it contingent based on X, Y, and Z? The other part is when the trust was violated, people lost some things that they needed, essentials, health insurance, benefits, things that are part of that security package. So what are we going to do to secure and keep them up? Get them back to where they needed to be secure. So now we have to come up, what does your employee value proposition, your benefit packages look like? Are you offering protections? Are you offering short-term, long-term disability? Are you offering health insurance? So there are a lot of small and medium-sized businesses that weren't offering these things in the past. Now they're faced with, how can I attract this new talent that's in the workplace now? And provide them those things that the larger company that laid them off or furloughed them that we're offering. Now that, this is a competitive work environment now. Employees or former employees have their choice and where
Oh
they
yeah.
want to do that.
It's all about choice. I think we
All
talked
about
about
choice.
that early. It's all about choice and things like that. And
Someone
you
provided me a quote earlier today, and I really want to read it.
who provided a call? We missed that part.
I said one of my fraternity brothers
Oh,
provided me.
fraternity, and he's in a fraternity. I don't know if you can say
Yes,
which
I
fraternity.
am a part of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated.
Okay. Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
and so and I'm in an investment. I'm vice president of an investment group as well. Again, another thing that started
He did
during.
not mention that earlier, everyone.
Yeah, a lot of things going on. But he provided me a quote by Adam Grant, and it says, "Think twice about opportunities that offer more status than but less freedom.
Mm.
Winning accolades and influence is rarely worth it if you lose the ability to control your time and express your voice. Happiness hinges on maintaining freedom. Success is gaining degrees of freedom.
Mm.
Companies gave people more freedom."
It's interesting you say that because one of the things that I focus on my training with my clients is Maslow hierarchy of needs. And of course,
Mhm.
I know I learned that in school, and I think a lot of people got away from that. And so when I re-engage them with that, they said, wow, it's the basic needs. So a lot of that basic need stuff that you just talked about, we don't have that. We didn't have that during when we were furloughed or laid
Mhm.
off or whatnot. All of that was taken. So how can I feel that I can get to the point where I feel like I belong, that I feel like I can even have that autonomy, that I feel like I want to do my best, but I don't have my basic needs now. I don't have that security. You talked about trust and transparency.
Mhm.
And I know that I personally face that when you're asking questions, okay, and you're back, right? Or even you never were let go or furloughed, and you're asking questions, okay, what's next? And you may not have the answer, but if you are not as transparent with saying, I really don't know, and say, why don't you help me figure out a plan? But
Yes.
if you are not giving people any information and they're just like, you know what, I'm going to have some security elsewhere because I don't know how many days left I have here, whether or not it's because I may be let go or because I don't know if I want to be here anymore. So you talked about two important things with having that trust and being able to have that transparency, and then also about that freedom and autonomy that
Yes.
people have felt like they weren't having. And I can just tell you, if you don't give me autonomy and freedom in a role, I'm going to be looking for another job, even if I'm still there, because I
Yes.
have to have that in a role.
Yes. And those are, and that's what's been brought up to the forefront is now that I have a choice, now
Mhm.
that I have freedom, now that, and what companies didn't do or managers didn't do, they didn't ask that, hey, Lakeisha, after being furloughed for 4 months or 5 months, what did you do to sustain yourself? And then how can we now bring you back into the organization, but then also consider what you went and started? Because that is a
Absolutely.
conversation that needs to be held. Because now you want me to stop doing something that I'm passionate, that I love. Maybe let's figure out how I can integrate that into the role.
Absolutely.
How can I give you the freedom to still do that and do your job? Because I now have to build that trust that you're going to do what you were doing previously and excel at it, but still be able to maintain and do the things that you did to make yourself secure. No, not everyone was sitting at home just trying to figure out what was going on. People took the initiative.
Absolutely.
And as I tell people all the time, America was built on small businesses.
Yep. And they still are.
And they still are.
Yeah.
And what you did was people became creative, they became innovative, they went out and they built their own security.
Absolutely. And I can tell you, I'm glad that I did that
Yes.
because it made me feel good to say, you know what, I now, like you said, I have a choice. So if this doesn't work out, I've been building my pipeline for the past 4 months. I've been re-engaging myself and what I love to do and what I'm good at for 4 months now. And to your point, why not just integrate and say, what have you been working on? How can we integrate that? Because now we can make our team even better because
Yes.
you all went and got new skills. And even if it's not related to the job, how can I help you
I
continue
love
to do
you
that?
upskilling. What do you think other people were doing during the pandemic? Okay, now I have to, if I'm going to flex into a new role, I'm going to flex into
Right.
a career, I had to upskill. Now you have another conversation to have with that employee about, okay, what new skills did you gather during,
Absolutely.
how can we help you apply those skills? Is this the right role for you right now?
Right.
Can we help
Absolutely.
you shift into another area of the department? Now it's clear, it's called the Great Resignation. that means that there are open roles across the organization everywhere.
Everywhere. All different companies.
All different companies. Don't matter the industry.
Everywhere.
Everybody has an open role right now, right?
Right.
So let's see. Am I bringing you back and bring re-entry into this new role? Is this the right role, or is there something else? There's something else that you would like to do in the organization? Let's see if we can get you in the right place to give you that support. Those are the conversations that managers should be having, that leadership should be allowing to happen to retain and regain your employees. That's right. That is what you need to do.
That's the missing piece. And I remember having, saying to a leader during, once I got back, probably a few months after I got back, I said, hey, I went and got another certification. The reaction was, oh, okay. Not, how can we utilize that? How can we build upon that? This is great. Nothing of that. And you can imagine I'm feeling, why am I here again? Exactly. Mm-hmm. Why am I here when I'm getting all of these accolades and successes and all those things outside of here? Why would I ever want to utilize it here when I'm trying and I keep getting so much pushback to what I'm trying to do to help the organization grow? So
the least, I was telling one of my best friend the other day, I was saying, I always take the least path to resistance.
Absolutely.
I was like, so if I find that is an uphill battle, but I know I can just go around the corner, then I'm going to go around the corner. And company X, Y, or Z, if you're going to provide me an uphill battle, and that includes your application process as an uphill battle, and your selection and screening process as an uphill battle, then you know what? I'm going to just circumvent that process and figure out another way.
That's a whole different. Oh, he didn't touch the nerve right there. Because I'm telling you, if I see a little application, I'm going to go, you know what? I'm not going to complete this thing.
Look, you got me filling out the exact same information on my resume. Why can't you just accept the resume? Why do I have to duplicate it? That makes no sense to me.
And don't ask me all these questions, all these open-ended questions. Isn't that what the interview is for? I'm not
Pre-screen questions. Now you want me to video record myself and submit the video. Mm-mm. Then on top of that, I have to fill out the application. Then on that, I have to be screened. And then I have to get to this interview. You created a whole process and phase, and you're looking for one employee.
Right.
One person.
I'm not going to do that. And I think that's why a lot of companies sometimes even lose those great candidates that you never even have, because your application process is so tedious and so exhausting. And I've had companies say, you didn't complete your application. You're right, I did not, because it's always 17 pages of information and question after this.
They wouldn't read your 17-page resume.
Exactly. Exactly. They're not going to read the resume.
You're going to give me a 17-page application process, but you won't read my 17-page resume.
Right.
You won't read my full breadth of who I am.
Right.
So that it doesn't make no sense. You have to be considerate of the people that are applying for the roles, but then also be intentional about if you're really going to interview them. As I build out resumes, do a lot of HR consulting. I build out not resumes, but job descriptions. Mm-hmm. When I talk to my clients, I ask all the things that you want listed in this job description. Is it important that they know the 25 things that you have listed, or do you really need someone to focus on the top 5? I was like, we know that there are other things that are associated with this role. What are your top 5 things you need this person to do? Because that's what's important. It shouldn't be a job description, shouldn't be 5-6 pages, because you need them to be able to do all of these things. Well, I mean, that's going to make it really hard. Now you're going to have 300-400 resumes to go through, and you have to source and see who's the best candidate for the role. Does this role really require a bachelor's degree or a master's degree or a PhD?
Yeah, man, we're getting a lot of nuggets.
Require a certification.
We're getting a lot of nuggets. I'm telling you, this may have to be our next session.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's why they resigned. Yes. So you mentioned something earlier about the hospitality industry and the restaurant workers. I know I did it in college. I worked at a restaurant. A lot of people did, but they are feeling the impact greater than a lot of other industries where people are saying, I'm just not coming back. So once the restaurants open back up, even in hotels, a lot of people said, thank you, but no thank you. I don't want to come back to this environment. And that could be for a lot of different reasons. Of course, safety and health, the wage that a lot of them are receiving as well. So you have low pay, but very high risk in their role, as far as potential infections or exposure to the virus and things like that. Going back to what you said about that life-work balance, I remember being there on the weekends. You have these non-slip shoes and it's late at night and your weekends are shot because that's when you make the most money. So people are thinking, exactly. So I can't have the fun life everybody else is experiencing. So what are some things that this particular industry, so hospitality, whether it's hotel, but mainly restaurants who are struggling, fast food and fine dining, what are some things that you think that they could do to keep people from leaving? Because it is a tough industry to be in with the low pay and very hard work. Just Neil, what are some of your expertise that you can lend to some of these organizations?
I would say definitely focusing on building out benefits and offerings. So being that they're hourly, most of them are hourly employees.
Yes,
They work, they're working either, 40 to 50 hours a week, sometimes just really to make ends meet. I've had a client that actually loved. They had the option of being doing a payment, advance payment of their or allowance of their salaries to help out some of those who needed support to get by until the end of the week or the following week. Some of them are paid weekly, if not, or get an advance on your tips if you are in that area. So just thinking creatively around ways that you can make the lives of your employees easier. That will go a long way by providing that type of support in that area as well. But also looking at your business, whether you're in hospitality, restaurant, looking at your business and seeing, do I need to shift? Do I have the right technology in place that makes my servers and my waiters and my hostess and my hotel staff and make it easier for them? Am I asking too much of them? And if so, have a genuine conversation with them about how we can make their lives easier. Remember, people are leaving. I think that remember that most people leave organizations because of managers, and if you have good management in place, you might be able to get them to stay a little bit longer. But if you're meeting their needs, back to that security piece, then they're not going to leave. So I think there was something broken before the Great Resignation in the first place. Hence the reason why people are trying to attract you with sign-on bonuses and paying for these roles with higher salaries. And so, higher salaries and sign-on bonuses don't solve.
And we're going to talk about that too.
Right. Later. Yeah, we're going to talk about that. I'm jumping ahead, apparently. Those don't solve the problem. But what you can do is have a genuine conversation with people. I believe in our last session, we talked about stay interviews. Absolutely. This would probably be a great way of introducing stay interviews to see, okay, what can we do to get people to stay and actually leverage the data to improve the working environment.
And I wonder if the reason why there's not so much emphasis put on that, because that's a lot of work to do, is because even before the pandemic, a lot of restaurants and fast food knew that it was a revolving door. It is an industry that typically has high turnover. I remember in my 20s, I probably worked at maybe 5 or 6 different restaurants as a server, as a hostess, as whatever.
You mentioned something that it's always been a revolving door. However, if you own a restaurant, if you're in the hospitality industry and you have high turnover, then you should have a strategic plan for your high turnover.
And it could be. And a lot of them, they're mom and pops, they may not have a lot of, money to invest in certain technologies and things like that. So, we have to also consider that all of these are not big chains and things like that. Some of them are.
Pipeline, though. I think
a lot of them are. A lot of them are the smaller ones that had to close down because, they couldn't survive through the pandemic and things like that. So it's just tough. And I know that there's been a lot of fights and questions about the pay for those in that industry. So I know when I went to Europe, the servers, our equivalent, and during this time, it was 2015, 16-ish, they actually got about $20 an hour. So they didn't rely on tips. Now, is that something we can do here? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, but I do know that it makes it tough because a lot of servers make $2.13 an hour, and that's great if you work at a fine dining restaurant where you can easily make $100, $200, $300 a night. But when you're working someplace where maybe it's an IHOP or Denny's or something like that, that's not really going to even scratch the surface of what you need, because your amount is so low. And even if you do the math of 20%, you're not going to make the same amount as somebody at a fine dining restaurant. So that's why that Fight for 15 came about, trying to have fast food workers, for example, and other type of industries similar, to make $15 an hour, to be able to help with that. There was this, I don't know if you saw, but it was, I think it was a typo, but it was up here in Rome, I think, where it said that they were paying $31 at McDonald's. I think it was, the numbers were backwards. I think it was $13 an hour, but I'm not sure. It said 31.
It might be 31. So I've been to a few McDonald's in the last couple of days with my son, and they are a little short-staffed, I will say.
They are. No, it's been a lot of that, actually.
So I would say that that competitive pay and what you're suggesting, I think a really strategy of identifying your talent pools. If you understand your talent and where they're coming from, you can plan for that attrition rate. And so, and then build out. And again, you might have the right talent. As Patrick Lencioni stated at the ATD conference I was just at last week, sometimes you have the right talent on the bus. They're just not in the right seat.
Could be, absolutely.
So if you have someone, and one of my clients pointed it out, he had someone that was a hostess, but come to find out she had other skills that were really better set for management. So he built out a pseudo management training program specifically for that employee to prepare her for a management role versus her leaving, because that was, so that again goes back to that conversation. He would have never known if he wasn't sitting down with his employees to understand why they were there, why they were staying. So he was almost doing a stay interview, but he was really just concerned because he was trying to figure out why her performance was poor. And once he asked that question, that opened up a whole new way of actually, hey, let me prepare her for management because she's a better fit there. So again, you might have the right people on the bus. You just don't have them in the right seats.
And you said something that it may happen now, but I don't recall it when I was in that industry, was having performance conversations.
Mm-hmm.
That was not something that happened in the restaurant industry as a server or a hostess when I was there. It was, it was little things like in the moment, like, oh, that table over there isn't happy with this or whatnot, but it wasn't a lot of emphasis on that for the wait staff,
mm-hmm.
as much it was for maybe management or things like that. So we have to figure out that balance between, again, making sure we take care of our frontline employees, whether it's, of course, frontline and restaurant, which is what we're talking about now, or other areas, because we see this across the board in all industries, is that our frontline employees do not get as much development. They do not get as much attention to anything they do, performance reviews or anything like that. And it's because we have this mindset that, we are going to lose them anyway. The turnover rate is so high. And it just takes a little bit of effort and strategizing, to your point, Neil, to figure out how can we at least give some type of training and development to them so that they know that we do care about them as well. They are important. They're the ones that do the thing. You talked about going to McDonald's. Who is making your fries and your burgers and things like that? It surely isn't the managers, unless, they're in the weeds.
Filling in.
That's usually when we see them.
I've recommended that you should be able to do something at least, if not monthly, quarterly, for your frontline team, for those who are out there on the floor interacting with your customers. You should be able to do something that engages them, providing them a really good experience, a professional development opportunity. With the way things are virtual and online these days and at the palm of your hands, organizations can now access learning, now can help them develop customer service skills or prepare them for management skills. There are ways of doing that to engage them now. There's no excuse. And I believe that's what the Great Resignation is basically identifying, is that, hey, organizations, we're tired, small and large, we're tired of the excuses, because I can go down the street to another company or hospitality, and they're doing it and providing that. So why can't you?
Yeah, and I know that I can actually give shout outs to Adidas and Reebok even before all this happened, that I was actually over all of the field training for our Reebok stores and providing training on the floor. We were finding time. We were carving out time. I was working with those managers to try to do that. So it was, monthly stand-up meetings and trainings on customer service and sales techniques and things like that. Was it difficult to find time? Yes. But was it done? Yes. And we were incorporating a lot of, hold on a second. And we were also incorporating a lot of our online training as well. So they can go on the computer and doing things like that. So this is why Brooks Consultants has created our online university for small businesses. So we have nearly 400 different classes online where people can go, and we really cater to those smaller businesses, or the ones that, can't afford a huge collection of training, and those companies that may be larger but says, we haven't really invested in our frontline staff. That's what we offer to our clients. So again, if you want to check that out, go to brooks-consultants.com under Brooks University. Well, you'll see the opportunity to give those frontline individuals training, and they can do it at their own pace. And if you want something more, incorporating a hybrid model like we did at Reebok and Adidas, which by the way was fantastic. And they've won many awards for their sales training. So congratulations to them.
So I was going to add to that is that you see that organizations are short-staffed, and some have been closing doors or having modified working hours. This is probably a really good time to take some of that time that you're not open and direct it towards your employees and giving them those experiences, that professional development, and investing in them while you're rebuilding your teams, rebuilding your staff, taking that time personally for them. Again, because they might know people that are searching and they can bring in that new staff too. Because normally we get roles through people that we know. That networking, that personal touch could also be there, but also in just planning for that part. But I love, what Adidas is doing, what you've been doing as far as your online university, and being able to support small businesses, because that's what they need. They need that aspect to be able to provide to their employees, to help them upskill and prepare for the roles there, but also the roles they plan on having in the future.
Well, one of the things I want to add, that if a company is considering using that off time, if you will, before the store opens or after, which is a lot of what we also have to do for the field training, is also consider that budget, because you do have to pay. A lot of these people are hourly. You do have to pay for that time that they are coming in. So allow for that. Work with a consultant like Neil. He can help you with budgeting that payroll. I don't know if you do that, Neil, but I'm literally telling people to come to you. So I don't know if you do it, but work with some type of consultant to say, do you do that?
I got some connections.
He has connections. So call Neil for his connections to figure out what that will look like for you as well. For those that may say, well, we want to do that, but we have to pay them. How can we afford that as far as our payroll? So talk to a professional, talk to a consultant. Don't feel like you have to do it yourself to figure out your strategies. That's why you have people like Neil and myself and other consultants that can help navigate this for you. Especially, again, if you're a small business, you're a mom and pop restaurant or a retail store, and you're like, I don't know what to do. That's why you have people like us to help you do that. So yeah, absolutely. Did you want to add anything to that as far as any resources you have for someone who may need that budgeting information for payroll, because they have to pay for the time people are on the floor?
Correct. So I don't have any direct information to refer people, but there are complimentary and free resources. But again, I think talking to Lakeisha or myself, we can really help you find where the resources are specifically for your industry as well. Because they're, again, similar to ATD Greater Atlanta, that's a free resource for a lot of different businesses, especially nonprofits that struggle with providing services and stuff for their constituents. You can partner with another professional association that have people who are looking to volunteer and provide training. So it really goes to that community outreach and building out those relationships within your community and seeking those who are looking to give back, because they are out there. And that's just one little fact. As I try to tell some of the businesses, I'm partnering with some small businesses right now that, I'm like, hey, you can partner with professional associations and get some of these things met. Maybe you won't get a full development of a management leadership program, but they might be able to provide some pieces that are essential to the development and growth of that for you.
Absolutely. Definitely good Good tip there as well.
Mhm.
So Neil, we talked a little bit about, sprinkled a little bit about offering high incentives. I actually saw a company that I referred to someone. They had a $3,000 sign-on bonus for a customer service role, and I was like, what? And it was broken up every, I want to say, quarter or every 30 days. Don't quote me on that. Did they break up that $3,000? So, and then I seen another one in an HR group. I don't know how true it was. They were giving like $100,000 sign-on bonus for a role, and I was like, ooh, where do I put my name into that?
That must be a senior level role.
I know, I didn't look into it, but everybody was like, whoa, that's crazy. So how do you feel, because I know you were talking about just a little bit earlier, but how do you feel about those organizations who offer large, unusually large signing bonuses or even unusual high pay just to get people in the door because they're feeling the effect of the Great Resignation? So their solution is, we're just going to give people money to come into the organization to help us fill these gaps. How do you feel about that strategy?
I have a couple of strategy questions about that. One, is it sustainable?
Is it?
And then the second thing is, money doesn't solve it.
No.
Solve the problem. So I think you really need to look internally to see, okay, what is my culture?
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have a culture, I guarantee you do. You just need to identify exactly what it is. Understanding your culture to see that, hey, is money what I need to attract people? Now, are you increasing the wages because, one, you were already paying low wages in the beginning in the first place? So you wasn't being competitive in the beginning. And if that's the case, then yes, increase your wages to be more competitive. But overpaying for roles, and so to me doesn't sound like you're being you're being transparent. It goes back to that security aspect, because now you've offered me this bonus that's going to go away. You didn't guarantee that this was going to happen on an annual or on a basis. It's a condition. And so now I'm gonna, I got a bonus, but did the pay stay the same? That you're are you underpaying? Is that, it's not, doesn't really seem secure and transparent. So, and my question is, are you really attracting new people with these high sign-on bonuses and this higher pay than normal? And then are they staying? So, and if they're not staying, now you have a culture problem, not a pay issue. You're paying above what people are getting to pay or normally would be paying. So now you need to address the main issue. So I would say start with your culture. Is the culture of my organization the right fit for the people that I'm looking for? And if not, look at the people that you're hiring and bringing on. Are they the right fit? And if you've got 300 applications and you're trying to tell me out of all 300 applications, no one is the right fit, I would say you need to look internally to see who's doing your hiring.
Absolutely.
And so, go ahead.
When we look at that situation, I look at it as a quick fix, as a Band-Aid that's put on a wound as well, where you're enticing people with money. And you have to ask yourself, are they the right type of people that you want in the role? Because a lot of people may say, I need money because I'm behind on my mortgage for 3 months because I haven't had a paycheck or because I didn't get approved for unemployment. So I'm going to do it, take the job, and then I'm going to move on after I get that signing bonus, which is definitely a risk that you take when you offer such a high bonus initially, especially depending on the role that it is as well. And so when I do a lot of these trainings and we talk about the research, it shows that money will get them in the door, but it won't make them stay. So that manager, that culture, that environment, all those things that we talk about with employee experience is what's going to actually keep them to stay. So will you be facing the same situation that you were facing before when people are leaving? So to your point, if it is a pay issue and you saw that there's some pay equity issues, okay, great. That may solve the problem. But if you've done research and you saw that people during their exit interviews, are you doing that when you're sitting down and talking with them? If they're not saying pay is their issue, then you're basically just putting a Band-Aid on that wound because people are telling you there's other issues going on. And you may want to find a different way to attract talent versus saying, here's money thrown at you. Because I can tell you, as someone who's had a very high salary and got different bonuses and whatnot, it does not make you stay. It does not make you say, I don't want to resign. It makes you stay until you find something different, but it will not say, I want to be here long term. And I've been at organizations where I made less money before, and I actually had a whole 5-year plan that I want to be here and I want to move up and do all these things. But I was making base salary $20,000 less than what I was making at the higher paid one. So to your point, it's really about a holistic approach to our data. But a lot of times our companies may not be, I don't like to say the word lazy, but they're not as eager to see data, especially if the data is telling us something bad about us in our organization. So are we going to get off our behinds, stop being lazy, and do the work that's going to show us the things that we may not like to see about ourselves? But if we do, we're actually able to have a better ROI on the work that we've done. So that's my perspective to add to the great things you've said.
Right. I would love to say that I believe between both of us, we can do for organizations that don't have an understanding of what their culture is or that feedback. Both of us should be able to come in and do an engagement survey to get that data. Some people just lack the data. They don't understand and they don't have the data. And I've worked with a lot of small and medium-sized businesses that they've never done a survey of their employees or staff to understand what the pain points are and then leverage and use that data to come up with a game plan. So instead of making that assumption, can we come in and do an engagement survey to understand what employees' pain points are, and are you prepared to hear and listen and do something about it? It's a one thing to do the survey, and then it falls on deaf ears and you don't do anything to address it. You're just going to perpetuate the resignation rate of what's going
on. Absolutely. Yeah. So we take that data to your point, and so that's a lot of qualitative data. And we say, hey, we got to have that quantitative data to go with it. It has to match, because I can get people's feelings and I can hear their stories. And I want to give a shout out to someone that actually does a little bit of work for both of us, Margie DeBrew, who is my senior data analysis, and she does like the best work ever imaginable. So Margie, you are the best. You are amazing. And when I say that she does very in-depth data, she does. So we take all of that data that we get, that qualitative, we match it with that quantitative data, and we say, here are the trends that we see. We're seeing that people are leaving for these reasons. We're seeing also the demographics of the people that are leaving as well. We're seeing the roles, because we ask for what are their roles. If they want to give a salary, they can. A lot of times they don't, but we say, what are their roles? How long were they in their roles? What was race, gender, any other demographic stuff? So we can break that down even more to say, this percentage of your population is leaving, and this is the rate they're leaving, and this is how long they typically stay with your organization. So to your point, you got to want to do that data. And if you don't have it, we can come and do it for you. But if you have it, give it to us. We're happy to make it happen, happy to give you some recommendations. But to your point, we can give you recommendations all day. Are you then going to take the plan, the strategy, and implement it? That we have no control over, unless they're hiring us to actually do the implementation. That is the next step, is, are you then going to implement that? And then how are you can continue to maintain that? Everybody gets excited when you first do something, right? You're like, that first 3 months, yay, Lakeisha came in. But how do you sustain the success that you have had in the momentum to keep people to stay within your organization? That is the big question that organizations have to ask themselves. That's nothing that we can answer for them. So yeah, any last minute thoughts before we talk about any adverse impact of this?
I would definitely say that we talked about the hospitality industry and their high turnover. I would say succession planning and understanding where people want to go. You might have the right people on the bus, and they're just not in the right seat. But in addition to that, there are people who just love engaging and working with people. And love engaging, and those are the people that you want to attract to your role. So maybe what are you putting out there to attract the people that you're currently attracting that are resigning at high rates, versus what should you be putting out there to attract the people that you want to attract for the roles that are willing to stay. And I believe there's a room for everyone at the table.
Absolutely, room for everyone. So I want you to talk to me about predictions. And of course, we don't have a magical crystal ball here to predict things, but we are seeing the trend of people leaving at a rapid rate. Do you think that there will be some adverse impact to individuals who do this because maybe they didn't have a plan. They said, hey, everybody's doing it. This is the time. And we talked a lot about the organizations and
Mhm.
the impact they have, but we haven't addressed a lot about the individuals. Do you think that you'll see a great wave of people that maybe regret or an adverse effect to leaving because it's the trend and the norms to do?
So yes, I can see that um, of doing that, and it's called I left, but I didn't have a plan. So I'm, as you know, I'm a planner, and so I sit back and I plan. Having that plan. And so if you decided to turn your hobby into an actual job and something that you are going to do for the next 10, 15 years, and having that plan. And Lakeisha, I believe you asked me this a couple months ago, and I'm guilty of this myself. I dived in consulting, and she was like, "Oh, so what is your 5 year plan?" And I was like, "I haven't thought that far." But I had it in my mind, but really thinking about, okay, am I planning to sustain this, or am I going to entry back into the workplace? And over the last couple months, you gave me something to think about, and I decided that I plan on doing this long term. So I should have that 5, 10 year plan. That's the adverse effect that I'm seeing in the resignations, is that some people don't have a plan. Some people have decided they're going to do this, and the economy itself is fickle.
Yes.
Companies, there are companies that don't make the shifts that they need to make in order to grow, and that can happen with us as individuals as well. Sometimes we don't make the shifts that we need in order to survive in the economic environment that we're currently in. So, did you make the right shift when you did that research and decided that you was going to take on that new role, or you're going to go get these certifications and you're going to move an entry into this new field, or if you're going to maintain the role or the small business that you decided to create on your own, you're going to have to start being strategic about those moves and seeing, did I shift to the right field that's going to produce something 5 and 10 years from now? Okay, did I get into technology at the right point or the right skill set? I believe it requires a little bit more thought than just resigning from your role and then like, oh, I'm going to figure out what I'm going to do over the next couple of months. Well, for us, I'm starting to project into 2023, 2022, 2023. Right now, we should be doing that as individuals as well. As far as like, okay, where do I want to be, and if this is this going to be sustainable, and am I going to be able to do this 5, 10 years from now?
Yeah, so we call that at Credhammer. Shout out to Credhammer, by the way.
Mhm,
We had something called the discovery curve that
mhm,
we introduced people to. So that meant that you initiated a change. The change wasn't brought upon you. We call that the morning curve. So the discovery curve is that I get up and I say, I'm going to quit. I found my passion. It's not my job. I want to do something different. And along that, you get this naive enthusiasm, like, yes, I did it. And somewhere along the way, you may feel fear, you may feel doubt, you may feel like, oh my goodness, like hopeless. Did you make the right decision? So you go through this until you finally hit accept. But during that time, I know that there are some people that says, I did this, I made that leap of faith, which is that's not personally how I would do that, but to each its own. And if you do that, you may go through that discovery curve of saying, I did this, I initiated this change, and I didn't have a plan. Or even if you do have a plan, perhaps that plan did not work out the way you wanted to. Perhaps you left because you felt that, I could go somewhere else and do something different. And it turns out that company's culture is just as bad because you
mhm,
didn't do your due diligence. You were so ready to leave where you were that you didn't do your due diligence on the culture you were at, because you went to that big signing bonus, not considering that the culture may be toxic, and that is why they're doing it. So you're like, hey, I'm going to go to company B over here. They're giving me a $10,000 sign-on bonus. And you get into the culture and you're thinking, this is why they gave everybody the bonus. It really sucks over here. So making sure, to your point, that you give some thought to it as well. It's great to have passions. I have a really good colleague of mine, Miss Bianca Robinson, who talks about it's okay to have your passion on the side and have your full-time job. She loves to speak about that, and it's definitely true. You don't necessarily have to take that leap right now. You may not ever take that leap, but give yourself time to breathe, to make sure this is the right decision, because we are seeing people leave their job at a rapid rate for a variety of reasons. So we don't want people to have that adverse effect to it, that it starts to impact them financially. We're starting to see, I don't want to see people being foreclosed on their homes and losing cars and things like that. So I just want to make sure that people have a great plan in place. And if you don't have that plan yet, again, stay at your job, and then strategize for that as well. I didn't have a option for that, because the company I work for did not like that I was continuing what I was doing during furlough. So it was decided that I would move on. But if you do have that choice, just make sure you give thought to it, so that it doesn't impact you negatively. And again, you may see the flip side of it. For me, it's been great. But it doesn't mean that I don't look at my emails and say, okay, do we have another client coming in? Do we have another proposal we got to send out? Doesn't mean that I don't go through that and trying to make sure that we hit our goals for the next 2 years or so. So any last minute thoughts or tips, Neil, that you want to share with anyone about any of the stuff we talked about?
Yes, I would definitely say, and during that, don't just have the conversations in your head with yourself. Seek out like-minded individuals that have already made the transitions, or probably doing something that you're interested in doing. Build a network and a pipeline of people around you that's supportive of the directions, and or at least just strategizing and talking about what you want to do before you make decisions. I found that has been a great resource. Just brainstorming with Lakeisha has been beneficial, helping me in my business and what I'm doing, and hopefully vice versa for her. But just finding those people that believe in you, that's going to support you in those decision-making processes, and just having those conversations. So sometimes we get frustrated at work and we make decisions spontaneously about, that we're going to quit and we're going to do it that day. I would tell people, one word of advice is never quit while you're mad.
Oh, say that again, Neil.
Never quit while you're mad. Quit on a good day when you're happy. You're going to know then that that's the right decision. But if you make a spontaneous decision while you're upset and mad and quit and leave and resign, whichever word you want to use, just make sure that you don't do it when you're mad. Do it on a good day.
I'm glad you said that, because I remember being heated. Oh my goodness. And my sister, I have an office, and my sister was like next door in the room she was having in my house. And I was livid, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to quit now. I can't. This woman is making me upset. Oh my goodness. She said these things. And my sister said, first, don't let her have you act out of character, for one. Don't have her make you make decisions that are going to hurt you, because you're mad at her. You're just going to give her the power. And I needed to hear that. To your point of seeking other people, I needed to hear that, because I was like, I'm done. I'm fed up. I can't do it. I think I started crying. I was so upset. My niece is like, are you okay? I was that upset about that situation. And it was my sister who taught me to calm down at that moment. I even have a therapist, and I talked to her about what I was feeling at work. And she says, just write the letter. Don't send it, but just write it. So when you're ready, you'll have it. To your point, when it's the right time. And it was sitting on my desktop, on my laptop for months, because I was like, let me write it. Let me write it when I have a clear head and say what I need to say. So the points you gave are very valid. I've done them myself. I do talk to Neil. I think we use Slack. By the way, shout out to Slack. We were just giving all these little
all the trade secrets, girl. Yes, Slack is great.
You're dropping all these nuggets and stuff to people, but Slack is great. And we talk a lot about just our business and what we can do and developing and working together. So definitely find those people that can help you do that as well. So I want to thank you all so much. Before I do, Neil, do you want to tell everyone you'll see them later, maybe? Any last minute words?
Last minute words. No, I would say thank you again for inviting me, and I've enjoyed you and your audience. Please reach out, whichever way, fashion that Lakeisha announces, because I'm not sure if if my information goes out with yours, but definitely, hopefully I get to come back and we can talk about other things as well, Lakeisha. So just send me the schedule when you need some additional support. I love it.
Love it. And just to everybody, we are live every other Thursday, unless something takes place. We are live every other Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Make sure to check us out again. Neil has always been a fantastic co host. Tracy, we'll see her back soon. She is now working, she's educating our students up in Prince George County, up in that Maryland area. So, shout out to Tracy and educating our wonderful students in that area. Congratulations to Tracy. I think she is either entering or ending her 30th year of educating. So she is taking care of our youth at this time, and Neil is filling in, taking care of our adults as well. So I want to thank
Thank you.
everyone for their support of the Leadership Loft by Lakeisha C. Brooks. Make sure to check us out in 2 more weeks for the Leadership Loft with Lakeisha C. Brooks. Until next time, I am your host, Lakeisha C. Brooks. Bye, everyone.